If you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, this episode is for you.
If you want to avoid a month, let it be September. But honestly, you might save a lot of money if you come then.
Like literally lights up. I mean, it looks like a scene out of Avatar when you kind of touch it.
There is a tank, a literally tank in the beach. So you can take photos with it. You can climb. There's two actually. You could be coming to Puerto Rico 20 times, and each time you'll find a different experience.
Where are the essential places to visit?
The essential places, the places that you can't miss in Puerto Rico are
I sat down for a really interesting interview with Vanessa, who is Travel Lemming's Puerto Rico expert. We go through basically everything you need to know in order to plan a trip to Puerto Rico. We talk about where to stay, the different places to go, whether you should rent a car. We talk about safety, what time of year to visit, how to visit during the hurricane season, and some of her favorite hidden gems. It really, if Puerto Rico has been on your bucket list, you're going to want to listen to this episode because we've got so much information in here. Vanessa really is an incredible expert on all things Puerto Rico. And I'm really excited for this interview. But you're going to also want to stick around afterwards when Betty and I are going to go over our What's New in Travel segments. And we're going to share some of our favorite travel lemming perspectives, including how long do you think it took in 1881 to travel from London to wherever you live in the world? Well, if you stick around, we've got a map that is going to help you figure out exactly how long that was and show just how travel has changed in the last 150 years. We'll also talk about the most turbulent flight routes of 2024 and how to travel if you practice yoga. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Betty. Betty, how are you doing today?
Hi, Nate. I'm doing great today. I'm actually getting ready to move from Phoenix to Los Angeles in just a couple of weeks. So, been super busy with that, but I'm super excited to hear your interview with Vanessa. I've been planning to visit Puerto Rico for so long, and I'm actually going to do it this year with friends. So, super stoked to hear everything that you guys discussed in that interview. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about it from you right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to Puerto Rico, like this is going to be a great interview. Vanessa, I think all of Travel Lemmings writers really know her stuff, but Vanessa takes it to the next level. She is quite literally studying to become a licensed tour guide. In Puerto Rico, they have a certification process. It's quite difficult to become a tour guide there. And about a year ago, she told me that she wanted to embark on that journey. And so, we've sent her to school to go through this process. She's getting close to getting done. And she talks a bit about that process. It's quite intense. They have to go through all these different exams, including like in the field exams. They have to learn about Puerto Rico history. Vanessa's a pretty incredible travel expert. And so there's just like so much interesting stuff in here. I think this interview is one that you're going to really want to listen to at least once or twice before you plan a trip to Puerto Rico. So let's go ahead and dive into that interview with Vanessa. And remember to stick around afterwards because we've got some really interesting stories to share with you. I'm telling you, this map, you're going to want to see it. It's really interesting. But here's Vanessa. Okay, so our guest for today is Vanessa Ramos. Vanessa is Travel Lemming's Puerto Rico expert. She lives just outside of San Juan. She's got hundreds of guides to all different aspects of planning a trip to Puerto Rico. I'm really excited to have you here today, Vanessa. How are you doing?
I'm good. And you, Nate, how are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm so thrilled to talk to you about Puerto Rico because I know for about the better part of the last year, you've been studying to become certified as a tour guide in Puerto Rico. So you've been learning all about the island, all about tourism there. And of course, you've got so many guides. I think our Puerto Rico section is our most in-depth section on travel lemming. So really excited to hear about all of your knowledge today. For the listeners at home who maybe haven't met you before, maybe give us a brief introduction about yourself.
So you already mentioned my name. I'm Vanessa. I'm a local to Puerto Rico. I've been working to travel, for 3 years now, writing travel guides for people that want to come to Puerto Rico, want to learn more about Puerto Rico. And yes, for the last 7 months, I've been studying to become a tour guide. And honestly, even as a local, I've gained so much knowledge. I've gained a group of people that loves Puerto Rico like I do. And I've been visiting so many places and I can see them with different eyes. And I hope to help you look at Puerto Rico that way and help you love Puerto Rico as much as I do as a local.
Very cool. So before we dive in, I want to talk briefly about, you've got a couple perspective articles up on travel. That talk about your studies for this program. As I understand it, Puerto Rico is one of only a handful of places that really has a very strict certification process for tour guides where they have to kind of go through all of this in order to be able to work in the tourism industry. And about a year ago, at your prompting, you sort of decided you wanted to take this on. Why did you do it? And what is that process like? And what have you learned?
So I decided to become certified because I was already working for Travel Living for 3 years, and I was wondering what would the next step be in my professional life regarding Puerto Rico, regarding writing about Puerto Rico, guiding people through Puerto Rico. And I thought that was a very logical step to get certified.
Tell us a bit about that. What does that look like? What do you have to do to be certified?
To be certified as a tour guide in Puerto Rico, you have to take 7 months of classes from Monday to Thursday. You have to make practice hours and take excursions and do excursions even before getting certified. And you also have to take an oral exam and a written exam. So it's a bit complicated, but it's a process that actually makes the best out of you as a tour guide.
So you're actually going out there, you're visiting sites in Puerto Rico, and then there's some kind of test that's about like history and making sure that you know all your stuff.
Yes, it's like any doctor or lawyer would do. We have to take a test to make sure like we know our history and we know our geography and we know what we're talking about when we get out there to the real world.
Very cool. Well, I mean, you definitely know what you're talking about, and super cool that you're going through that process. So Vanessa's your expert, folks. If you want to plan a trip to Puerto Rico, I mean, she's literally studying this stuff. And of course, she's out there every day visiting places and building these guides. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about Puerto Rico. So here's what I have planned for this interview for the listeners. Let's talk first about the why, like why go to Puerto Rico. Then we'll kind of talk about who should go. And then after that, we'll get into the nitty gritty of where do you go? What are the sort of best experiences to build a trip around? I'll maybe ask you, Vanessa, to help us build out sort of a sample itinerary that people might follow. And then we'll go through all those sort of basic trip planning questions around when to visit, safety, budgeting, how to save money, and just some general tips. So that's kind of an outline of what we've got planned. So we'll try to cover all those bases. It's a lot to move through, but let's just back up from a 30,000-foot level, Vanessa. Puerto Rico is an interesting destination. It's an island territory of the United States. You can go there without a passport, which makes it attractive to a lot of Americans who don't have a passport, but it still has a very distinct culture and a lot going for it. I visited before and I loved it a lot. I actually went after I studied for the bar. You're talking about exams earlier. I did a big trip for like a month through there as part of my bar trip after I studied to become a lawyer. And so I have great memories because it was so great to just like relax on the beaches of Vieques after having done that. But for people out there who are planning a trip, what do you think are the main reasons to pick Puerto Rico as your destination to go?
So Nate, you mentioned if you're in the United States, Puerto Rico, it's incredibly accessible. It's easy to access. You don't need a passport. You just buy a ticket. It could be for this weekend. Buy a ticket and you can get here. There is no complications to coming here. But what makes Puerto Rico special, it's a combination of history, culture, and outdoors. And regardless of your taste, you are bound to find something to do here. When it comes to outdoors, Puerto Rico has over 1,000 beaches. It has the only rainforest in the U.S. forest system. It has multiple reserves. It has a mountainous range. So Puerto Rico has a lot of outdoors, rivers, beaches that you can enjoy, and most of the time for free. When it comes to history and culture, if you're not too outdoorsy, Puerto Rico has one of the oldest and best preserved Spanish colonial cities in the American continent. So even if you want to go far from the capital, you can stay in Old San Juan and enjoy historical building, enjoy museums, and enjoy a lot of the culture that takes place in San Juan. So even if you want to make a trip and you don't want to rent a car or go out of this capital city, you'll be enjoying your stay in Puerto Rico.
Very cool. So what type of traveler in particular do you think should book a trip to Puerto Rico?
So either if you're a historical enthusiast or if you're a beach lover, Puerto Rico is your destination. If you're into hiking, camping, Puerto Rico has lots of great places for this. And Whether you're a solo traveler or you're traveling with a family group, Puerto Rico is also a good destination for you.
Very cool. Okay, so now if I'm thinking about visiting, what time of year is typically I think right now we're recording this in January. This is, I think, roughly about the start of high season. Is that right?
So it's high season for the US travelers and people who come from cold weathers who are seeking warmth that escape from the cold weather. It's a high season for tourists specifically from the United States. But the high season for locals, it's actually summer.
Oh, that's interesting. So locals are out of school, they're out, and so they're out traveling internally to Puerto Rico during the summer months when it's presumably pretty hot in the Caribbean in the summer. But then in the winter, you get a lot of the tourists coming from mainland United States in.
Yeah, it's actually funny because for us locals, this time of the year, the beaches are kind of cold. So you wouldn't see many locals actually swimming in the beaches because we consider them cold. And also the tides are aggressive or higher. So we kind of wait until May, June to actually go to the beaches.
But the tourists are swimming right now.
Oh, yes, yes. And you'll find locals, but not as many as in summer.
If you're living in New York City, it's probably a nice tropical retreat, but that makes sense to me. Okay, so a lot of people visit between what's like January to March is a big spring break destination. But when would you say somebody should plan a trip? Or are there any particular months that they should definitely go or that they should avoid?
So if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, come during December and January to catch the holidays and festivals like La Fiesta de la Calle San Sebastián. If you want warm weather and lower tides, come in summer. If you want to come during a time that's everything cheap, come on September. This is sadly the hurricane season, but Puerto Rico doesn't have hurricanes all year. So it's a matter of just keeping an eye on the weather. So I'd say that's the best time to save money.
So is there any month when you would say don't come to Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico, it's an all-year destination. Like, you can come to Puerto Rico at any month of the year, and there's something to do. There's festivals to catch, and it's warm all year. So, yeah, you can come any time of the year.
And if you are visiting during hurricane season, as Vanessa says, you need to plan. But Vanessa's got a whole guide to Puerto Rico in the hurricane season on Travel Lemming. So if you're visiting, that's what, roughly from end of July through beginning of October or something like that?
Yes, the hurricane season in Puerto Rico goes from late June to November,
Okay.
with the peak season being in September, October. But as I said, Puerto Rico doesn't receive hurricanes all years. It's just something that happens every now and then, and you could save money if you just keep an eye on the weather. If you want to avoid a month, let it be September. But honestly, you might save a lot of money if you come then.
So the best time to go to Puerto Rico is whenever you can. Well, let's talk about how to plan a trip. So Puerto Rico's got one big main island, a couple smaller islands off the coast. Where are the essential places to visit and where are kind of the places that people should go and should think about basing themselves as they plan out a trip?
So the essential places, the places that you can't miss in Puerto Rico are Old San Juan, Ponce, Piñones, and Vieques. You should try to fit those in your itinerary. Old San Juan, it's a colonial city, a Spanish colonial city. It has 500 years of history. It has some of the best hotels in Puerto Rico, so it's a great place to settle. It's a pedestrian-friendly area, so if you don't want to rent a car, it's great. And it has lots of museums and restaurants. It's also one of the best places with nightlife in Puerto Rico. So yeah, it's a great destination. Ponce is very similar to San Juan. It's a historical city. It has museums too. It has beaches, and it has one of the few Taino archaeological sites available to the public in Puerto Rico. Piñones, it's very famous. Piñones is the place to go if you want to eat local fritters, mofongo, alcapurrias, bacalaitos. If you want to hang out by the beach, if you want to surf or bike, Piñones is your destination. It's very popular, especially during the weekends. And Vieques. Why Vieques? Vieques is considered to have some of the best beaches in Puerto Rico. They have high visibility, great coral reefs, and also what's considered the brightest bio bay in the world. It has a secluded vibe. It's great to slow down. Very different to Old San Juan, but outdoor lovers should definitely include it in their itinerary.
And Vieques, for listeners, is a smaller island off the, I think, eastern coast of Puerto
Yeah.
Rico. So I've been there. I went there as part of my trip, and that bio bay is like super cool. I think there's several bio bays in Puerto Rico. Vanessa's got a guide to this on Travel Lemming, but you go in a boat and the water, because of a plankton or something inside of it, like literally lights up. I mean, it looks like a scene out of Avatar when you kind of touch it. And it does depend a bit upon what the natural conditions are as to which day you go and all sorts of things as to how bright it is. But it was quite bright when I saw it. You could like drag your hand through the water and you would get this sort of like blue aura tracing behind you. I think still years later, like it's one of the most memorable travel experiences I ever have. So I think absolutely worth taking the ferry and going over to Vieques just for that. Very cool.
Yes, Vieques, it's a bit of a hassle to get there, but as you said, it's worth it. Either by plane or by ferry, just take a day or two. And I should mention that you should also add a junket to your essentials. Like the rainforest, it's the only tropical rainforest in the US forest system. And it has waterfalls, hiking trails, landmarks. So it's a place that if you love hiking, it's the junket, it is the place for you.
Yeah, and El Yunque is you can do it as a day trip from San Juan,
Yes.
or how would you recommend people visit?
So if you're short on time, a day trip from San Juan will be enough. Like you can see the main attractions in El Yunque, and that would be enough. If you're really into hiking, just take a few days to stay in Rio Grande, where the main access to El Yunque is. There's lots of great hotels there, including some of the most luxurious hotels in Puerto Rico. And you can stay there and just plan to cover the different hiking routes and the different places El Yunque has to offer.
Very cool. So you're saying maybe base yourself in San Juan, spend a few days in Vieques, maybe a few days in Ponce, and then visit Piñones along the way, and also El Yunque.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And then what other destinations? Let's say if I had more time than that, what are some other ones that I might be interested in?
If you have more time, add Culebra to your list, especially if you're a beach lover.
And that's another island?
Yes, Vieques and Culebra are both islands outside the east coast of Puerto Rico. You can get there either by ferry or by plane. So it's a bit of a hassle, but totally worth it. And it's great for beach lovers and to slow down. So you should add Culebra, especially Flamenco Beach, which is considered one of the top 10 beaches in the world. And besides
That's
that,
the one that has that tank on it? There's like a tank washed up on it?
yes, because it seems incredible, but the area was actually used as a bombing range for the Marines. So there is a tank, a literally tank in the beach. So you can take photos with it. You can climb. There's two actually. The second one, it's not as easy to spot from the beach. You kind of have to hike through the coast, but it's there too. There's two of them.
Really interesting. Okay, so Culebra, where else?
So besides Culebra, Cueva del Indio in Arecibo, it's rocky shelter or a cave, as you want to call it, and it has lots of Taino petroglyphs. And getting there, it's a combination of an outdoor experience and a historical experience because you kind of have to hike over the coastal rocks, and later you have to descend into the cave through a hole. It's a whole adventure, but it's really impressive to watch the carvings in the wall along with the sunlight getting through the cave. If you're a historical lover, you should really add that to your itinerary. Besides that, Fajardo, Cabezas de San Juan in Fajardo, which also has a bio bay. It's actually a lagoon, but everyone's call it a bay. It has Seven Seas Beach, one of the top beaches in Puerto Rico. Besides that, Toro Verde Adventure Park, which has the second longest zip line in the world. Guanica Dry Forest, which is the counterpart of El Yunque. Luquillo, the beaches in Luquillo are great, and the food is too, especially in the Luquillo food kiosk. And Casa Bacardi, if you're looking for rum experiences to see the distilleries in Puerto Rico. And I'd say Las Cavernas de Camuy, the cave part, it's actually one of the most impressive sites in Puerto Rico too.
So there's a lot. There's a lot to see if you want to visit Puerto
There's
Rico.
a
You're not going to
lot.
run out of activities.
No, there's a lot. I cannot possibly cover everything here, but I got lots of guides that you can read, and depending on your taste, you can choose where to go.
Okay, so let's go about sort of the trip planning process a different way. We talked about kind of the main places that you might build a trip around. Some travelers like to build their trips around experiences. What are sort of the big things that somebody might try to center their trip to Puerto Rico in terms of experiences, or what are the best things to do in Puerto Rico?
If we were to sum up Puerto Rico in experiences, I'd say food it's one of the most important parts. And Puerto Rico actually has four gastronomic routes. One of them, and I'd say the most famous one, is known as Pork Highway in Guabate. That's a place to go to eat roasted pork, lechona as we call it.
What's
Grilled.
that? What is a pork highway? Just like sort of set the scene for what that looks like for the
So
listeners.
a gastronomic route, which basically means it's a road which is lined side by side by restaurants. It goes through calle, and you'll find lots of restaurants known as lechoneras. Lechoneras are restaurants that are specialized in roasted pork. So you go there to have what I'd say the most traditional Puerto Rican food. Besides roasted pork, you'll find rice, you'll find beans, you'll find lots of things that Puerto Rican love in their food. So it's a gastronomic route. You go restaurant hopping to try everything there's to try in Puerto Rican cuisine.
You said it's one of four.
Yes, Puerto Rico actually has more than a pork highway. The one in Guabate is the most famous one, but there is other in Trujillo, which is kind of closer, but people prefer the one in Calle because you can go to waterfalls there and also a few spots that you can take great pictures. Besides that, there's also a route known as La Ruta de la Longaniza, which goes through Orocovis, and longaniza it's a type of sausage. So there's also a festival with that. So eating food, it's one of the experiences to have in Puerto Rico, whether it's in the mountainous range in San Juan, going to Piñones. Eating food is part of traveling to Puerto Rico.
And Piñones is a beach sort of town, and there's like food vendors along the beach or something like that.
Yes, Piñones, it's an area in Loíza that's a beachfront area, and it has lots of food kiosks. It's don't expect any luxury here, but it's one of the best places to eat authentic local food. Everything from mofongo to alcapurrias you can find in Piñones. And also the seafood in this area, it's also great. It's fresh and has one of the best tastes in Puerto Rico. This one is actually very near San Juan. So it takes maybe a 20-minute ride from San Juan to get here. So even if you're here in a weekend, you can visit Piñones to try local food.
Very cool. So if you're a foodie, you're set with between Piñones and the gastronomic routes. What are some other experiential reasons or things to do in Puerto Rico that you might build a trip around?
Besides the food, I say dancing. It's another thing that it's very characteristic of Puerto Rico. And I say if you're visiting, take a salsa or a bomba class. Salsa, well, many people know salsa and Puerto Ricans love it. You can take a class or you can go to a place known as La Placita de Santurce, which is a local hotspot. And there you can just learn from locals and you don't necessarily have to pay. You just grab a partner and they'll teach you. Bomba class, bomba it's more Puerto Rican folklore, so it's a bit harder to learn, but it's a very traditional dance. It's a very cultural dance and something that Puerto Ricans are really proud of. So either take classes of either the two or the two if you're into dancing. Besides dancing, Puerto Rico is very famous for its beaches. If you love the beach, you can either go snorkeling or diving in Puerto Rico. Here you can snorkel with chorros and you can dive with sharks too. So the coast in Puerto Rico offers a lot to do and it's an experience itself. Even if you're not getting into the water, experiences Puerto Rico's beaches, it's one of the things you need to do. Surfing, it's very popular on the West Coast, or going island hopping. Puerto Rico is an archipelago, so you can go island hopping. Many experiences in Puerto Rico are around the beaches.
So you can get out in the water. You can build a trip around food. You can build it around history.
Yes.
And you mentioned outdoors is one of the main reasons as well. We've talked about a rainforest and hiking and mountains. So it really seems like there's a lot of different trips that you could have to Puerto Rico. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. You could be coming to Puerto Rico 20 times, and each time you'll find a different experience. Each time you can have a different trip dependent if you're looking for outdoors, if you're looking for adrenaline, if you're looking for cultural experiences, museums. Each time you'll find a different experience.
Okay, so we've covered the sort of essential Puerto Rico trip. Now, I want to ask you a bit about any of your sort of personal favorites or any hidden gems that maybe are lesser known, but you in particular like.
So hidden gems. Really a challenge today to have any of those because of social media, but there's a few spots that I've come to like, and when I visit them, they're not crowded. It's very local. I'd say one of my most preferred spots, it's Manantial Guayanay in Manatí. It's a spring, cold spring, and you have to hike about 10 minutes to get there. And getting down to it, it's a bit of rough, but the experience, you're surrounded by trees, it's silent, it's a whole different experience, very relaxing. It's free, and if you go during the day, early morning, you'll often find it empty. It's one of my favorite spots. I've been there maybe 3, 4 times already, and it's very near San Juan. It's about 30 minutes from San Juan.
Cool. So, what are any other hidden gems that people might look into?
Yes, Punta Guaniquilla in Cabo Rojo, it's a resort. Finca Ihuaca, also in Cabo Rojo for camping. La Soplaera in Peñuelas, which is a waterfall. And Punta Ballenas Resort in Guanica. Cuelva del Arco in Utuado. And Hacienda La Esperanza in Manatí, their resort.
Ah, very cool. Well, you've got lots of options for where to go in Puerto Rico. Vanessa's giving you plenty of ideas to how to build a trip. Now, let's talk a bit about the nitty gritty of trip planning questions. So, okay, I've decided to go to Puerto Rico. I've kind of a vague sense of where the places are. Now, some questions people are likely to have are how long do they need to kind of have a trip to Puerto Rico?
You can take anything from 3 days to 10 days in Puerto Rico. A weekend trip, it's enough to cover San Juan and El Yunque, but I recommend staying about 10 days in Puerto Rico.
Okay, so you got 10 days, so that fits nice. You take a week off work and you got the weekends before and after. How would you structure? What would you say? Obviously, there are many ways to do this, but what would you say is like an ideal itinerary for that time frame?
So I'd say spend about 2 days in San Juan, in Old San Juan, covering also Condado and Santurce, which that would take about 2 days. I'd say to include Arecibo, Isabela, and Aguadilla. In Arecibo itself, you could spend a whole day or 2 days. On the west coast, cover Rincon and Cabo Rojo, and that should take about a day, 2 days. To the south coast, don't miss out on Lajas, Guanica, and Ponce. And you can spend about 2, 3 days in Culebra, Vieques, and Fajardo. Definitely a day in Rio Grande and Luquillo.
So it's a lot to cover. And of course, you got to plan for those ferries to get out to the other islands. In terms of how to do all that, is this the sort of place where you should rent a car or how else can you get around?
The main way to get around in Puerto Rico is by renting a car. There's taxis available, but the fees for taking you to other towns outside San Juan, it's pretty expensive. So if you're on a mid-range or budget traveling to Puerto Rico, it's better to rent a car. It's more efficient that way and also gives you more flexibility. There's virtually no public transportation outside San Juan and the metro region, the cities around San Juan.
So for readers who are from the US, have maybe never, are used to driving in the US and are maybe nervous about driving in Puerto Rico, what can you say to them to get them potentially comfortable with the idea of renting a car?
So driving in Puerto Rico, it's very similar to driving in the United States, the same signs, the same traffic system. So if you're nervous about driving in Puerto Rico, but still want that flexibility, I'd say to keep to the coast. Avoid the mountainous range entirely, where it could be a bit more challenging to drive, and stick to the coastal towns, where it's mostly highways and it's easy to move around. But it's not as complicated as many people might think. It's very similar to the United States.
And about how long does it take to drive the main island from one end to the other?
In theory, it's possible, at least, let's say, from west to east, but you can actually cover the island entirely without like stopping. It's not a realistic goal when coming to Puerto Rico to
Right.
cover the island in a day. We're
Right.
not that small. So I'd say if you can cover the North Coast maybe without stopping about 6 hours.
And just to give folks a bit of a sense of scale. Okay, very interesting. Let's talk about budget. If someone's planning a trip to Puerto Rico, what should they expect in terms of costs?
So, if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, you should know Puerto Rico is not as budget friendly as other destinations in Latin America. It's really not. It's more similar to the United States in its prices and its hotel prices and restaurants prices. So, if you're coming to Puerto Rico, you should budget as if you're traveling to the United States. If you're a couple in a mid range visiting Puerto Rico, you could expect to pay almost $2,000 for a week during your stay. You could pay even more depending on what you're doing and where you're staying. Luxury travelers will pay a lot more because luxury hotels can go up to 900 a night. So you could expect for a week over $8,000.
Very interesting. Any tips for folks to make it a little bit more budget friendly on how to save money?
Yes, if you're on a budget and you're really committed to it, you could do Puerto Rico in maybe $800 a week. But it would take some dedication. Puerto Rico has a lot of free attractions. You could go couch surfing or stay at hostels. We got plenty of those in Old San Juan. You could stay in an apartment rental to do meal prep and avoid in and out. Also, bring your own water bottle. Puerto Rico's has potable water, so you can bring your own water bottle and reuse that instead of buying water bottle.
Another common question people have is around safety. So, is Puerto Rico safe for folks to visit?
Puerto Rico is safe. It's a place that you can come as a solo traveler, you can come as a woman solo traveler, as a family, as a couple. You can come to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is safe. There is a few things you need to think about when coming to Puerto Rico, but these are things you would do in any other country, like not walking alone at night, not going into places that might seem sketchy, maybe not leaving stuff in your car and you rent a car, not leaving your bags in your rental car, and keep your belongings with you at all times. Do not leave belongings and tables at the beach without supervision. It's stuff that you would do in any other country. But besides that, Puerto Rico, it's completely safe for tourists.
And what about language? So, can you get by if you don't know any Spanish?
You can get by. There are many Puerto Ricans that either speak or understand English, specifically in the capital city in the metropolitan region, which are the cities around San Juan. You will find a lot of people that speak English, but if you're planning to go into the less touristy towns, into the mountainous range, I suggest you have a basic Spanish prepared in case you need to ask for directions or ask for help in case anything happens. So basic Spanish is recommended, but not mandatory.
So, if you're going to Old San Juan and you're kind of doing tours and you're sticking to the main trail, you'll be accommodated in English just fine.
You'll be completely fine. Yes.
Book that trip to Puerto Rico, folks. Hopefully, we've addressed all your objections. But if you have any other doubts, leave a comment and Vanessa will be happy to help. Well, we're coming to the end of the interview here. Before we wrap up, do you have any particular tips for folks who are looking to go to Puerto Rico?
So if you're looking to come to Puerto Rico, I would say depending on the time of the year, like keep an eye on the weather for the hurricane season. Always watch out for the ocean conditions. Many people come to the beaches, but they're sometimes dangerous to swim in. So watch out for ocean conditions. Ask locals if you're in doubt if it's safe for swimming. Also, same with the rivers. There's a lot of flash floods because it rains a lot. So people like to just get in the river whenever they see one, but you need to keep eye on the weather. And I'd say just know your basic Spanish and just be friendly. I'd say you'll be fine with that.
Okay, perfect. Well, if you're sold and you're ready to plan a trip to Puerto Rico, Vanessa has almost 200 guides to almost every subject and every place that you can imagine in Puerto Rico. And if you can't find the information that you need in her guides, you can leave her a comment on any one of those guides, or you can go to YouTube for this podcast and leave her a comment there. she really has everything you need to plan the perfect trip to Puerto Rico. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
I think we're good. If you want to know more, just go to the guides. I answer comments on the website. So if you have any doubt, you can leave a comment and I'll be answering you as soon as I can. So just as you said, book that ticket and you'll be welcome here in this Caribbean paradise.
All right. Thank you, Vanessa. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Vanessa. Before we get into the next segment, I want to briefly tell you about Vanessa's guide to Puerto Rico. In addition to all of the many free guides that she has on Travel Lemming, which you can find by just searching Travel Lemming Puerto Rico or wherever destination you want to explore in Puerto Rico, Vanessa actually has an ebook. It's available for purchase. You just search for A Local's Guide to Puerto Rico or search for the Travel Lemming Puerto Rico ebook. And this is a complete travel guide. Like she really put a lot of effort into covering everything that you need for the island. And so it's available in a PDF download. You can add it if you have like an e-reader. There's a way that you can add that to your e-reader and it gives you everything that you want to travel to Puerto Rico. Also, if you're planning to travel to Puerto Rico, check our San Juan meetup calendar because if you're coming through San Juan, when we have community meetups, you can meet Vanessa and some of our other community members. In addition to San Juan, we also have meetups in 7 other cities around North America. So be sure to check that out and come meet us in person. And also, lastly, I want to say very soon we'll be coming out with itinerary planning services where Vanessa will actually plan your entire trip for you. If you really need help for a big special occasion, maybe you need a honeymoon, or you're just a family who's really busy and wants someone else to help you plan, that's going to be coming very soon on the Travel Lemming website. So again, if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, search Travel Lemming Puerto Rico for all of your trip planning needs. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next segment. So we're bringing back what's new in travel. And mine isn't actually so much a news story. It's more something that went viral on social media. So it's a map from 1881. So not exactly brand new, but it recently really got millions of views across different social media platforms. The Royal Geographic Society published this isochronic passage chart for travelers. And what an isochronic map does is it shows you the travel time between places. So usually when you look at a map, you're kind of thinking about distances, but because of water, because of mountains, because of geographical barriers, that's not always representative of how long it takes to get between places, particularly in the 1880s when it really mattered whether you were close to like a train line or whether or not you were close to a shipping passage. And so this map could tell you how long it takes to get from London to different places around the world. And for viewers on YouTube, we'll go ahead and put it up on the screen. For the listeners at home, it's a color-coded map with these sort of like concentric circles going out from London. And everything that's within green is a place that you can travel within 10 days from London in 1881. And so that's mostly Europe and a little bit of Northern Africa, like Cairo, the northern part of Morocco, and a very small bit of Newfoundland in very eastern Canada. Then after that, it sort of goes out. It took about 10 to 20 days to get to most of the eastern seaboard of the US, to get a little bit further into the Middle East. Or you could actually get all the way to San Francisco in that time because of the Intercontinental Railroad. 20 to 30 days, that'll get you through all of the United States, into Mexico, starting to get into South America. But you still, in that time frame, can't get to East Asia. You can't get to Australia. That's going to take you as much as 30 to 40 days to get to, for example, Japan. So it's really crazy when you think about it, like how far travel has come. When I look at this map, it just gives me so much appreciation for the time that we live in because, today you can be almost anywhere in about 24 hours and at max probably 40 hours or so. And that's, if you think about what it would have taken to do some of the journeys that I did last year, I mean, I would have spent the entire year traveling just to go between the places that we went last year. And I think it's what a time to be alive, right? I don't know. Betty, what do you think?
Yeah, it's seriously mind-blowing that it could take up to a month to get to some of these places that nowadays you can get to within 12 hours. It's really insane, and this map is really interesting. I've never seen anything like it before, so definitely check this out if you're not listening to this episode on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the map on Wiki Commons in the show notes.
Very cool. Well, what I brought to the table today is an article that was just posted by Travel and Leisure about studies revealing the most turbulent flight routes of 2024. So I won't list them all, but here are the top 5. We have Albuquerque to Denver, Denver to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Jackson Hole, Wyoming to Salt Lake City, Denver to Salt Lake City, and Bozeman, Montana to Denver. So if you're traveling to a comparable location soon, here's some background on why these flights are bumpier than others. So many of these airports are located near large mountain ranges. For example, Denver's near the Rocky Mountains, Salt Lake City is near the Wasatch Mountains, and Jackson Hole's right next to the Grand Tetons. So the reason these are bumpier flights is because mountains create a complex air current and wind shear, which is a change in wind speed or direction. So as air masses move over the mountains, this leads to bumpier flights. And there's also different air temperatures at different altitudes, which further increases turbulence. So if you're flying over mountains this year, remember that turbulence is more likely on these routes, and it's normal. Just something to keep in mind in case you're not a fan of those bumps in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Denver for a number of years and would fly in and out all the time. And it is definitely one of those airports where you never know what's going to happen. You're coming in and out. Really interesting. Should we go ahead and share a couple of our favorite travel lemming perspectives?
Yes, of course. So, moving right along to our segment on the Travel Lemming perspective pieces. So, these are articles that our talented team of local experts have written about their personal experiences abroad, which you can check out at travellemming.com/perspectives. We have new ones coming out every single week. So, my pick for today is Claudisette's article titled My Secrets as a Seasoned Yogini Tips for Practicing Yoga While You Travel. So, Claudicette talks about how yoga is one of the easier hobbies to take with you while you travel. And in fact, the very first thing that she packs on her trips is her yoga mat. So, in this piece, she talks about investing in yoga gear. She even lists some of the gear that she uses, like her yoga mat as well as her gym tote bag. And the links for those products are in the article. She talks about booking accommodations with yoga in mind, whether that's having a room that's spacious enough to roll out your mat and be able to have a little yoga session in your hotel room, or just finding a place that's close to local yoga studios. She also said you can look into a yoga retreat, which I know is something that's gotten a lot more popular in recent years. I haven't personally tried one, but I really like to. They sound very relaxing. It's kind of like a mental reset. You can also look for a local wellness event near wherever you go. You can practice yoga in nature. So yeah, it was a really interesting article from Claudicette. She has some really great tips for bringing this mindful practice with you wherever you travel.
Interesting. Well, I don't practice yoga, so I don't have a lot to comment on that. But my perspective for today is from Vanessa, but it's not about Puerto Rico directly. It's actually about a trip that she recently took to Peru. So, because Vanessa is such an amazing writer, she actually was recently hired by one of the big guidebook companies. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say which one, but she was hired by them to go to Peru and to help write the next edition of their Peru guide. And it's one of the companies that you would definitely know, and very proud of her for doing that. And she wrote a piece on coming back on that with some reflections on what Puerto Rico could learn from what she saw of Peru's tourism industry, because of course, Peru has a very developed tourism industry. It's very reliant on tourism. And Vanessa is really becoming a leader in the tourism space in Puerto Rico. She's really looked up to locally. And I'm really proud of this article, but it's her giving some reflections for Puerto Rico, for her local tourism industry, on how Puerto Rico can continue to develop its tourism industry and what it can learn from Peru. So she says, for instance, she talks a lot about the transportation network. And that is one challenge in Puerto Rico, is that there's not much of a public transportation network beyond San Juan. As she mentioned earlier in the interview, it's really ideal to have a rental car if you're planning to travel around Puerto Rico. But of course, many people don't want to drive. And it would be great if Puerto Rico could kind of build that out. She talks about theme tours, which is something that she learned in Peru, about how they have tours that cater to particular interests or maybe follow particular routes. And we talked a bit about this earlier, about some of the gastronomical routes that they have in Puerto Rico, but she has some suggestions for other potential tour routes there, and also about how they kind of promote their tourism industry. So look, if you're into the nitty gritty of how the tourism industry works, I really suggest go checking that out. And I think it's just incredible to kind of see Vanessa's leadership for the Puerto Rico tourism industry there.
Yeah, Vanessa is such an excellent writer, and she's obviously doing big things for Puerto Rico and Travel Lemming and beyond. So make sure you check out her author page on Travel Lemming.
All right, folks. Well, I think that's all we have for you in this episode. Again, if you're planning a trip to Puerto Rico, be sure to Google Travel Lemming Puerto Rico, and you'll find all of Vanessa's guides. She's got that ebook. You can go to her meetup and actually meet her in San Juan, or very soon we'll be coming out with those custom itinerary planning services. And if you like Puerto Rico, you probably also will like Mexico's Yucatan state, which I think one of the biggest hidden gems in Mexico. We did a whole episode about this a couple months back. So you can go ahead and check that out next. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.